You know, I want to say peace and shalom to our listening audience. Thank you to our online viewership that's catching our stream today. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you chose to be here with us, cliche. I want to give a special thanks to our brothers and sisters, both online as well as in the building, for coming out, because again, it is a Sunday. Of all days, it came out on a day where everything has literally shut down because of the holiday season of the nation that we do live in. So I want to really, really reach out and say thank you. I want to give some special shout outs to some people in the room that I also saw walk in as well. I want to give a shout out to our Brooklyn Moors, the Moorish Republic, Brother Yusuf Ben and Brother Amir. Would you just come up real quick so I can just introduce you to the people real quick? We would like to show, as Hebrews, as Moors, as people who have work in the community, we want to show that the information that we're sharing on these public platforms are supposed to empower the entire community, the entire intellectual community. Myself and these brothers have been in dialogue for a short time, but within that short time period, there's been great substance. And I do respect their leadership in the community. I do respect their intellect in the community. And I'm glad that these brothers came out. And I'm going to give the brothers a really quick chance to maybe say some brief words to the community. Shalom.
Shalom. First, I want to give praise to the Most High. Give also the divine prophets. I'm Grand Sheikh K. said Bay, from the Moorish American National Republic, Brooklyn, New York. Supporting Temple number 1. You know, I'm going to let Brother Ben.
Shalom. First and foremost, I like to give praise to the Most High. I like to give honors to our ancestors. And I like to introduce myself. I'm Sheikh Amir Talib El, chairman at Supporting Temple number 1. This is my Grand Sheikh. He just introduced himself. And just briefly to touch on, we came because Brother Uzziel Lewi, he actually reached out. And, you know, we've been in dialogue discussing the Moorish Hebrew connection. And we're going to be in the future announcing a collaborative demonstration where we're going to be breaking down, showing the actual historical connection between the Moors and the ancient Israelites, and showing through archaeology, through various primary and secondary sources to give a picture to show that we are one and the same people. Mm-hmm. When you go into the history, you'll learn about the Moorish Zionist temple, which were Moors who practiced the traditions of ancient Israel. As you can see, my Grand Sheikh and myself, we wear fringes. We observe the laws of the Torah. We recognize that us even claiming ourselves as Moorish Americans, that we would have no foundation if it wasn't for the Torah and Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So with that, I'm going to let the brother Lexx, my Grand Sheikh, like to say something else. We're going to let the brother Lexx to get over this demonstration.
Yeah, shalom, Islam. And this is something that has to be really taught and emphasized amongst the Moorish community. Because, for instance, you know, the Circle of the Quran is based upon the character, the personality called Jesus. And according to that personality or character called Jesus, if he's from the tribe of Judah and he's supposed to observe certain laws, and more say they love Jesus, then they're supposed to observe the same type of laws, which is the 613 commandments of the Torah. And when you read the Holy Quran of Muhammad, it says that the Torah is a guide. So if the Torah is a guide, is the foundation of the Holy Quran of Muhammad, then why are you not observing and keeping those laws, statutes, and commandments? So this is something that has to be emphasized amongst the Moorish community, that you're supposed to observe the laws, statutes, and commandments of the Most High. You're supposed to adhere to the Torah and keep those laws. So when you see us wear the fringes or the frontlet and so forth, this is in accordance with divine law. So we're going to do a deep demonstration connecting the dots between the Moors and the Hebrews. It's going to be a very powerful demonstration, so look out for that. Islam, shalom.
Thank you very much, brothers. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Peace, peace.
Give it up for our brothers, please. One thing I want to emphasize and make extremely clear, we certainly will be doing that collaborative lecture. It's very, very important in our community to show the lineage of intellect and of men and women that have stood strong here in this country, promoting these truths that have caused us all to be in the same room or tuned in live right now. You know, for Hebrews, it's imperative for us to acknowledge our Moorish identity as well. when I get into specific circles and I'm asked the question of who I am or what do I see myself as, the first thing I identify myself as is being an Israelite. Naturally, that is what I say. But I never cease to also acknowledge that there certainly was a point in our history where we have Moorish identity. Now, I am not astute, as these brothers may be, in delineating that history, and I'm also not ashamed to say so. And we have to get to a level of growing in information where we can sit down with brothers and sisters and put the shame to the side so that we can grow with the information. So that lecture is certainly coming, it's certainly needed. Our brothers are going to give their perspective on the significance of understanding your identity as being a key to liberation. Very, very important. Every time we speak about revolution, the first thing you have to ask yourself is, what are we fighting for? Mm-hmm. If you do not know what you're fighting for, if there is still a cultural identity issue, if there is still a nationalistic identity issue, if there is an identity issue with regard to your heritage, there is no genuine revolution or revolutionary. You must first identify that which you're fighting for. So with that being said, I'm going to introduce the first speaker for the night. This brother is a brother that I know for quite some time, going back to the year 95, I think, which will make it like, what, 22 years by now? Very, very strong brother, a teacher, a chief man in our community that I come from. There's a lot to be said about this brother. He's a brother that wherever he goes, there's a spirit of discipline and brotherhood and love for his people. This is a brother that's a family man and a teacher in Israel going back to the 1980s. Very, very strong brother and a leader indeed. I want to have everybody embrace our brother, Chief Uzziel Lewi.
Blessed be. First, I want to start out by giving all praises and honor to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Yehovah by name. In this presentation, I've actually been doing this for years, and my brother Zion Lexx asked me to come out and share it with the people. The whole presentation is about the pagan origins of all the Christmas symbols, and it's important to know because sometimes as people, we get into things that we really don't know about. There's a lot of things in history and things that we've seen in history that we just get into and we just don't know the origins of them. And these things are the things that cause us to, especially in our community, cause us to hurt, cause us to fall back, cause us to go backwards or keep the wool over our eyes. So these are things that we have to break free of because these are the things that will continue to hold us down. I like to say peace, shalom, Islam to the brothers, and I hope that my presentation will be something that when you leave out of here, you'll be more educated than when you were when you first came in, and that it will be something that you could pass down to someone else and be able to get something out of it, because that's the most important thing. You know, I might not be as eloquent as some other brothers, but I do try to convey the message so that you'll be able to understand. So with that, I hope that you get something out the lesson, and I hope that, can everyone see the PowerPoint clearly? All right. So where's the mic stand? Work with the mic stand. Give a hand to my brother Chief Benjamin. This is his place, Tova now, and he opened it up for us to be able to conduct this meeting. So Christmas and its pagan origins. What do we know about Xmas? Anybody in here? What do you know about Xmas and its origins? Anyone in here? Yes, my brother. What's your name? Daniela. What do you know about Xmas and its origins? Or what did you learn being a child about Xmas? What did you learn? Not what you know now, but what did you learn when you were a child about Xmas?
It was so-called Christ's birthday.
But what else? What else came along with Xmas? My man, my brother right here. What's your name, brother?
Monel.
Monel. What else?
Santa Claus, exchanging gifts.
Santa Claus exchanging gifts. And there was also a spirit that came with Xmas. Am I right or wrong? I mean, it was called the what?
Christmas spirit.
The Christmas spirit. So with that Christmas spirit came a lot of things. And we see the Christmas spirit within when we go into stores. You know, even us being conscious at this time, we get into the Christmas spirit not knowing it. Because when you go into the stores, you hear Mariah Carey all day. All I want for Christmas is you. That song is in your head, am I right or wrong? It's in your head. And that's part of the Christmas spirit. Subliminally, they make us go out and spend more than we usually do. So why do I say that? All they hitting you in the head with is Xbox, the new Xbox. What is it? The Xbox what? The white one. What is it called? Xbox what?
360.
One? Xbox One S. Right? The white one. Shows everything in 4K. So subliminally, they're getting into our children's minds. And our children, although we have knowledge of self, will find themselves coming to you and saying, Daddy, Mommy, I want the Xbox One, or I want the new toy that's out there. Why? Because in this society, during the holiday seasons, they make a third of their money. Understand what that is. So even if we bring forth the truth, the pagan origins of all these holidays, right? They are not going to stop celebrating it because me and you say that it's pagan. Because at the end of the day, the bottom line is what matters. So therefore, they start before it used to be right after Thanksgiving. But now you see Christmas advertisement all the way back to September. And this is part of the whole movement that they have going on in order to keep us spending and spending and spending. As black folks or melanated people, we are some of the people that spend the most in this society, and we own the less in this society. So now we have to think wisely and we have to spend wisely, because it affects us, it affects our bottom line, and it affects everything that we do. Now, the mythology of it, Santa Claus. We've been told for years that a fat man came down the chimney, right? Came down the chimney, whether it was a fire burning or not, but he came down the chimney and he put gifts underneath the trees, and that's where you got your Christmas presents from. Now, our parents bust their behinds. So now you're going to give credit to a Caucasian man with gray hairs and that he gave you all these things when your parents went through the whole year busting their behind to be able to afford and give you these presents. But the credit is given to a white man, to a Caucasian man. So it's all psychological. You understand what I'm saying? So we grow up thinking that the white man has given us everything. The white man is the one that provides everything for us. You understand what I'm saying? So these things are the things that we have to keep in mind. And now we're going to get into some of the pagan customs and origins of some of the pagan symbols of Christianity. What is Xmas or Christmas? Christmas, Christian festival celebrating the birth of Jesus. The English term Christmas or Mass on Christ's Day is of a fairly recent origin. It's a fairly recent origin because most European countries didn't start celebrating Christmas till maybe the 18th century, if even that late. In America, I believe at the turn of the 19th century, they weren't even celebrating Christmas. So these are things that we have to be aware of. So where does the name come from? The Mass on Christ's Day. The earlier term "you" may have been derived from the Germanic "Jove" or the Anglo-Saxon "Geo," which referred to the feast of the winter solstice. Anybody in here know what the winter solstice is? And what day it falls on? The winter solstice. Anyone? So the winter solstice, you know, you have a summer solstice, right? Which is the beginning of summer. The beginning of summer begins on June 21st on the calendar, on every calendar. So from June 21st all the way to the winter solstice, which is December 21st, the sun begins to go down earlier and earlier and earlier and earlier. So we get to the winter solstice. Now the winter solstice is when, especially here in the northern part of the hemisphere, we get daylight to be shortest in the day. So now this is important because the earth sits on a tilt, right? And it revolves around its axis what? How long does it take the earth to revolve around its axis? 365. Around his axis is what? That's if it revolves around the sun, it takes 365.
24 hours.
Right, it takes 24 hours to revolve on that axis. So now what happens is, and the time that it takes for the earth to revolve around its axis is revolving also around the sun. So it's revolving around its axis and it's going around the sun. It takes about 365 days and some hours for the actual earth to revolve around the sun, which it makes a year, right? But in that period of time, you have all these things going on, these solstices going on. So now from June 21st all the way to December 21st, you have the days shortening and shortening and shortening and shortening. Now, if you're closer to the equator, the time stays the same. Day and night is about a 12-hour period, right? But since we are in North America, you will see that's why we have daylight saving times and we have all these different things where they adjust time, because we get into a point where we get into the winter solstice, and in the winter solstice, what happens for a period of about 3 days, the strength of the sun stays about the same, or the strength of the sunlight. The days stay at the same short period of time. Now, after that, the sun begins to take longer and longer to go down, right? So most ancient societies celebrated the winter solstice because it was a time of the renewing, or the renewing strength of the sun, the S-U-N, the sun. So now we're going to see how it evolved into being the day of the birth of the sun, the S-O-N, and how it was Christianized from its pagan origins. It says here, the corresponding terms in other languages, Navidad in Spanish, Natale in Italian, Noel in French, all probably denote nativity. So we all know about the nativity scene, right? We know about the nativity scene, everybody? Absolutely. So what's in the nativity scene?
You got a manger.
You got a manger with baby Jesus in it.
You got 3 wise men.
You got 3 wise men. And who else? Joseph, and who else? And Mary. So that's what the origins of the name Navidad, Natale, and these Latin-speaking countries. Since the early 20th century, Christmas has also been a secular family holiday observed by Christians and non-Christians alike, devoid of Christian elements and marked by an increasingly elaborate exchange of gifts. In this secular Christmas celebration, a mythical figure named Santa Claus plays the pivotal role. So we're going to talk about Santa Claus later, but now we get into the point where it doesn't matter where you come from in the world. If you come from Saudi Arabia and you've been in America long enough, and your children grow up here, guess what they do? They celebrate Christmas. Although in their way of life, they know right now in Saudi Arabia is a regular day of work. Nobody's celebrating Christmas over there right now. If you come from Jordan, you come here, your kids are that, and they start passing out Christmas gifts. Why? Because it becomes such a, it becomes such a money-making machine that they get into the minds of our children. And then the parents fall victim to the same thing instead of holding on strong. Because all these things are pagan and has nothing to do with us. It's like our children come over, or the children come over here, and they take hold of the traditions of the customs of the land, and that's how they begin to lose their children. And that's why you see in the East, they're so opposed to Western society because they're afraid of losing their children to the Western mentality that we have here today. Because what happens is that once you lose your children to to their traditions. Once your children lose their traditions and their value, now you begin to get that new world order that we always hear about. That one mind frame, the whole world thinking one way. So now, this is what's happened now. It's no longer a Christian celebration. Now it becomes a global celebration that even though people don't really believe in the story of Christ being born on this day, it's such a large celebration that everyone is in the spirit of the celebration, and everybody is buying gifts, and everybody is doing all that is involved with the Christmas celebration. So this is what's going on in society now. So you will see a Hindu, a Sikh, walking around with Christmas presents with a turban on, which is off kilter, because that's not what he grew up celebrating. But because he is immersed into society, into Western society, this is what he's doing now. And this is what he's into now. Us as a melanated people who was brought from the west coast of Africa, we didn't know nothing about Xmas when we first got here. How did we get into that? We were following the slave master's religion. And that's how we got into it. And us as a people, we're the biggest consumers during this time and during this season. And we was to take our money that we spent during Xmas season and put it into something productive. We will have all types of businesses, all types of schools, all types of things that will be progressive within our community. But they keep us deaf, dumb, and blind, and keep us going and buy presents, and keep us spending our money, and keep us in a financial hole that it takes us a whole year to get out of. Because right now people blew up their credit cards from buying so many things. God forbid you got a large family. If you got 10 nieces and nephews, if you got aunts and uncles, they all want presents, because it's the mentality, it's the Christmas spirit that we're into right now. Let's go to the next slide. How did December 25th become the birth of Jesus? The precise origin of assigning December 25th as the birth of Jesus is unclear. The New Testament provides no clues in this regard. Nowhere in the New Testament are you going to see December 25th as the birth of Jesus. Nowhere in there is it going to say that this is the day that this man was born. But it was this particular holiday was Christianized and was made the birth of Jesus. December 25th was first identified as the date of Jesus' birth by Sextus Julius Africanus in 221 CE, Common Era, and later became the universally accepted date. One widespread explanation of the origin of this date is that December 25th was the Christianizing of the Dies Solis Invictus Nati, day of the birth of the unconquered sun, a popular holiday in the Roman Empire that celebrated the winter solstice as a symbol of the resurgence of the sun, the casting away of winter, and the heralding of the rebirth of spring and summer. So this is the origins of Xmas. Now you have more ancient societies that you could go back to, and you could identify certain festivals that they celebrated. But I chose to stick with the Roman Empire because it's the most recent empire, and it's something that we could relate to at this time. So now, Julius Africanus in 21 CE, he was the one that said, all right, I'm going to put the stamp on this. This is the day that Jesus was born. And from then on, we know about Emperor Constantine, right? We heard about Emperor Constantine, right? He was the one that did what? He made Christianity what? The state religion of Rome. So now, what happened with Emperor Constantine? Emperor Constantine was in a predicament. He had a bunch of pagans, because Romans were pagan. He had a bunch of pagans that were bucking the system of Christianity. Now, Christians were growing during this time. A tribe of Christians were growing. And he became involved with Christianity. And when he became the emperor of Rome, he decided to make Christianity the state religion of Rome. But what? He had problems on his hands. Because all these people that have been pagan all these years said, hell to the nah, Constantine, we ain't going for that. And we know about Roman history, they'll kill you in a minute. So what did Constantine do? He said, okay, we are going to find a way to make this stuff work out. So what did Constantine do? He said, we're going to take the Dies Solis Invicti Nati, which was the day of Saturnalia, which was a celebration in Rome that they celebrating Saturn, and also it was during the time of the winter solstice. And like I told you, in ancient societies, the winter solstice was celebrated because people thought that it was the rebirth of the sun. Like it's saying right here. It was December 25th was the Christianizing of the Dies Solis Invicti Nati, day of the birth of the unconquered sun. So this is what they also celebrated during the Saturnalia in Rome. They worshiped the sun. If you see ancient artifacts of Emperor Constantine and his coin, on one side it will have Constantine's face, and on the other side it will have the symbol of the sun. This showed that he was a pagan, but he later changed to Christianity, and he took the traditions of paganism and put them into Christianity in order to appease the pagan followers of his, and so that they will be able to accept Christianity much easier. So the celebration of the Saturnalia was revelry, people giving each other's gifts, people having feasts. They sacrificed the pig, which is still prevalent in the Christmas celebration today. Everyone in their homes right now have a big piece of ham. Yeah, that's what they have. They're eating that right now. If you come from a Christian background and you came from that, you understood that on this day it was a big ham on the table. And this was all part of the Saturnalia and also of the winter solstice celebration that they did in Rome. It says, a popular holiday in Roman Empire that celebrated the winter solstice, a symbol, I read that, coming down here. Indeed, after December 25th, have become widely accepted as the date of Jesus' birth, Christian writers frequently made the connection between the rebirth of the sun, the S-U-N, and the birth of the sun, S-O-N. So it was easy for them to make one fall into the other because it almost sounds the same. S-O-N, S-U-N is almost the same. So it's the rebirth of the unconquered sun, which was the winter solstice celebration. And now since we Christianize it, now we can say it's the rebirth of the S-O-N sun. Or it's the birth of the S-O-N sun. Not the rebirth, but the birth of the S-O-N sun. Like I said earlier, nowhere in the New Testament are you going to find Jesus' birth. There's no date to it. Now, as far as giving birth, when you look in the Old Testament, it speaks about on the 14th day of the first month, right? It shall be to you the Passover. So on the 15th day of the same month should begin the feast of unleavened bread. And you should celebrate that for 7 days. And on the first day and on the 7th day of that feast, you shall have holy convocation. Right? And then when it talks about the first month, the 7th month, the first day of the first month, it should be a day of blowing. We call it Yom Teruah. Right? It says on the 10th day of the same month shall be Yom Kippur. So in scriptures, we certainly have places where dates are called out and days of the month. So if this was truly Jesus' birthday, it would have been called out and it would have been written out. So we see where traditions came across each other and people made them fit in order to appease one group of people with another group of people. It says, one of the difficulties, I want to make sure I left off at the right spot. One of the difficulties with this view is that it suggests a nonchalant willingness on the part of the Christian church to appropriate a pagan festival when the early church was so intent on distinguishing itself categorically from pagan beliefs and practices. So the early church fathers wanted no part of paganism. They didn't want a Christmas celebration with Saturnalia. They didn't want to intertwine both. But as time and society came along, and as we go down, we're going to see all the other traditions that were incorporated into this Christmas celebration. So as time went on, people accepted it more and more and more. It's like if you see your children, you have a dietary law, you live a certain way, and your children constantly keep breaking it. They keep breaking it. They keep bringing pork into the house. They keep bringing Chinese food into the house. And you stop saying something about it, eventually that's going to spread through the house. And everybody's going to accept it. And then your other children are going to begin to eat it. And then their children are going to begin to eat it. So because the Christian fathers, they appeased it and they kind of turned a blind eye to it, then it became good and it became Christian tradition throughout the centuries. Let us move to the next slide. Origins of the Christmas tree. According to Encyclopedia Britannica, the use of evergreen trees, wreaths, garlands to symbolize eternal life was a custom of ancient Egyptians, Chinese, and Hebrews. Yes, Hebrews. And you say, well, what are you talking about, Uzziel? Hebrews? We worship trees. That's why the Most High spoke to us about in Jeremiah chapter 10, about we go into the forest, we chop down the tree, we adorn it with gold and with silver, because we fell into pagan traditions. We fell into pagan traditions. So the Christmas tree was one of them, or the evergreen tree. And now we're going to get a little bit more into why they use the evergreen tree during winter and the origins of why they were using this tree. It says, tree worship was common among the pagan Europeans and survived their conversion to Christianity in the Scandinavian customs of decorating the house and born with evergreens at the new year to scare away the devil, and of setting up a tree for the birds during Christmas time. So what they believed was that the evergreen possessed magical powers because everything else died. When fall came, everything else died. All the other greenery was gone. And this was the only tree that survived winter. So in their minute minds, they thought certainly there has to be some mystical power with this tree. Because no matter what hits it, winter, snow, heat, whatever, it still survives. So they thought there was magical power in the evergreen. So what they did, they brought it into the house in the form of wreaths, in the form of the Christmas tree, or the evergreen tree, the pine tree. And they brought it into their homes because they thought that it warded away the devil or evil spirits. So that's why I'm bringing you the pagan origins of all of these things. During the Roman midwinter festival of Saturnalia, houses were decorated with wreaths of evergreen plants along with other antecedent customs now associated with Christmas. The modern Christmas tree is frequently traced to the symbolism of trees and pre-Christian winter rites, wherein Viking and Saxon worship trees. The story of Saint Boniface cutting down Donner's Oak illustrates the pagan practices in the 8th century among the Germans. A later folk version of the story adds the detail that an evergreen tree grew in place of the fell oak, telling them about how its triangular shape reminds humanity of the Trinity and how it points to heaven. So we took stories, fairy tales from Vikings, from Saxons, and they just took whatever story they might have had and they just incorporated everything to make it fit. They made an amalgamation. They made everything fit. No matter where it came down, what part of Europe it came from, they just took whatever fairy tales they had and made it fit. Chief, can you give me a couple water? Water? Let me get some juice. We'll move straight ahead. Is this making sense to y'all? Is it making sense? All right. The Yule Log. We got all types of songs, you know. We got songs about the Yule Log, but what's the origins of the Yule Log? It's burnt during this time. This is a pagan custom from Yule festival of the Teutonic and Celtic tribes, which Yule festival was in honor of the god Thor. So the Celtic tribes are basically the Baltic nations, which are the nations from Western Europe. I think some of those nations are like part of Germany, North Italy. You got the French, people from Luxembourg. You got all these different people that were part of these Gallic tribes or Celtic tribes, right? Festival was in honor of the god Thor. We see Thor today. It's a mythical figure. You can look at the Avengers, and you will see it all in there. But there's a story behind Thor. The Saxons and Gauls burned the Yule log at the festival of the winter solstice. So one thing that we see that all these people have in common is that they all celebrated what? The winter what? The solstice. Right? They all celebrated that. Thank you, my brother. They all celebrated the winter solstice. It says each year a brand was saved to rekindle the new fire. So from year to year they kept the brand from this particular law, right, to rekindle the new law that will come the next year. It says here, remnants were believed to have magic powers, and the log symbolized protection against evil spirits. So all these people right here were all concerned. Give me 1 second here. All these people were all concerned with evil spirits, demonic spirits, and this is what was going on in Europe. You know, they all believed that there was spookism and all types of stuff going on. Fortunes were told by the Yule log, and its light was considered sacred. To the ancestors of the Catholic faith, Christmas was called the Feast of Lights. The lights and fires incorporated into the nativity celebration were made to symbolize the fact that the darkness of the world was past and true light now shone. This background explains the lights on Christmas tree. Everything about the Christmas fire and lights was considered very sacred. The blaze of the fire was made to symbolize Christ as the light of the world. So they took every pagan tradition and connected it to Christianity, made it part of Christianity. And this is where we stand today. Christmas candles. The Yule candle was burned as a companion to the Yule log. The modern candles set in windows have their origin in the Yule candle. The tradition was brought to this country by the Irish. In Ireland, during the years of religious suppression, candles were put in the windows to attract fugitive priests who would know it was safe to enter the houses and to say mass. Modern candles used for decoration, though electric and not wax, and incorporate the same principle the Catholic Church set before as Christ, the light of the world. So the candles represent Christ being the light of the world, and this was also, these candles was an indication to these fugitive priests who were banned from doing mass during this time. They were persecuted. So the people put candles, in those days they were waxing, but they put candles alongside the window so that the priest would know which house was safe to come in there and continue in the Xmas celebration. Evergreens, we kind of went over this, but this is a little bit more. You have already read how houses and public places were decorated with evergreens during the Saturnalia and calendars of January. They were never sought barely for the decorative capabilities. The evergreens were used as defense against demons and witches. They thought were especially prevalent during this time of the year. So it speaks about the mythology of that time and what the people believed, what their psychology was, that they believed that there were witches and demons roaming around. So they needed this plant to protect them because it was forever green. They thought the winter demons were afraid of the greens because they stayed green all year. Green belongs in the realm of summer and life. Winter kills most of summer's vegetation, but the evergreens remain steadfast. They were symbols of everlasting life to the heathen. We know better today. We understand what that is. But back then, the people didn't understand that. They, especially Europeans, they had no knowledge of this, or they didn't grasp this. At first, the church frowned upon this intrusion of paganism into the sacred season on account of the superstitious sentiments which were bound up with them. So the church knew that this was superstition. The early church fathers understood that this was superstition, but it was too deeply rooted for prohibitions to have permanent effect, and in due course they were annulled or forgotten because they adjusted to whatever traditions, wherever you came from in Europe, you had, and you incorporated into the Christmas celebration. So they adjusted, and they just conformed to whatever was there. It says, instead of banning them, she more often permitted their continuance, directing her efforts towards investing them with a new sanctity and meaning. So that's what we call as Israelites, we call Christianity pagan. We have a right to call it pagan because it's entrenched in pagan tradition. It has a whole bunch of pagan background to it.
That's right.
Idol worshiping is pagan. God didn't command us to worship idols. He told us, in fact, he told us not to make to yourself any idols and don't bow down to them.
That's right.
In the Roman Catholic Church, you have about 13 stages you have to get to before you get to Christ. So these are the things that we have to keep in mind. And this is why sometimes we go so hard against Christianity, because of the paganism that's incorporated in it, that the church fathers allowed to be incorporated in it. It says, while they were often made to represent higher and holier things, the older notions were not always discarded. Hence the mixture of ideas, pagan and Christian, which became entwisted with the greenery of the season, the plants which more than any others entwined themselves about the festival of holly, ivy, mistletoe, and rosemary. Deck the halls. Anybody knows this song?
I heard it.
Come on, y'all know that song. You know it. You know the melody of it. So the actual melody is, the original melody was not a Christian song. I believe it was, it flees me right now. I think it was a Dutch writer who wrote a song that had nothing to do with Christmas. But once the melody was taken in the 1890s and it was transformed into an Xmas song. So we know it. Deck the halls with boughs of holly, fa la 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 la. 'Tis the season to be jolly, fa la 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 la. So that's what we see there, right? So what's holly? Because we always say, we say things, we repeat things. You might have had to sing this song in elementary school. Maybe you had a Christmas, what they call them, Christmas show, right? And they had you sing, you was part of the choir, and you were singing this, and you didn't know what half of this stuff was. So what's holly? Let's take a look at holly. Holly, this is the holly plant, which is also a plant that stays green throughout winter. You can find this plant right here in New York City. Jersey, you can find it all throughout this eastern region, you can find it. Holly was admired by heathen Druids. Anybody know who the Druids were?
Celtic.
Celtic. But Druids were the educated class of the Celtic people, right? And the Celtic tribes is the tribes that are, like the Germans, North Italy, people of Western Europe, so forth and so on. So this plant was admired by them, by the educated class of these Celtic tribes, who believed that its evergreen leaves attested to the fact that the sun never deserted it. And since the sun was held in worship, holly was sacred. Holly was supposed to be hateful to witches and was therefore placed on doors and windows to keep out evil spirits. So now people make a mistake. People think that holly, this is a holly plant. This is not a mistletoe. People mistake this as a mistletoe, right? Because what happens is people decorate their homes with this, put the holly plant over the doors, and do all these things. But there's a distinct difference between holly and a mistletoe, and we're going to get to a mistletoe later. But as you see, all these things have the same common ground. They ward away evil spirits, they keep witches away, and so forth and so on. Under the influence of Christian thought and sentiment, holly became very sacred. The red berries on the holly once had a pagan meaning, being the blood of drops of a beautiful Balder, the ill-fated darling of Valhalla. Given its new Christian meaning, the berries now speak of the blood drops which the cruel crown of thorns drew from the Savior's brow, which is who? Christ. So it no longer had a meaning or significance that came from the Druids or the pagan custom of these Western Europeans, but now it was Christianized. The berries even have a meaning. It no longer meant that it was good. Now, the whole thing with Balder and all that is, we're going to get to that, but that's a story or a mythology story. Balder was the son of Odin and Frigga, right? He was one of the sons of Odin and Frigga, and he had a blind twin brother. His name flees me right now, but we're going to get to it in a second. Now, what is a mistletoe? This is what a mistletoe looks like. So there's a distinct difference. The holly plant has red berries, mistletoe has white berries. So now, mistletoe is an aerial parasitic plant that grows high in the boughs of trees. The mistletoe does not have roots and is dependent on its host for survival. So what happens with the mistletoe? Birds take the mistletoe seeds from tree to tree. So it's a parasitic plant. It grows off the power of other trees. So it'll be high on an oak tree. It'll be on different types of trees, but it doesn't have its own root in the ground. It grows off other trees. So now we're going to see the mythical history behind it and see why people kiss under the mistletoe. It says, although it is mainly associated with oak trees in Celtic mythology, the European variety grows on deciduous trees. The Latin name of American mistletoe, Philodendron serotonum, means fora, Greek for thief, and dendron for tree. So when I say it's a parasitic plant, because it lives off the power of another tree, when you look at its original name tells you what it is, because it's stealing the nutrients from the tree, right, in order for it to flourish. So that's why it's given that name. It says, for tree, in reference to the fact that mistletoe sends its roots into the host tree, robbing it of its nutrients. Mistletoe is propagated primarily by birds who deposit the berries during flight. These berries quickly root in their new home, and in some places trees are green in winter from the mistletoe they host. So even though a tree could be barren, have no leaves on it, because of this mistletoe plant, it will give the appearance that the tree is green. Mistletoe is Celtic myth. In Celtic language, mistletoe means all healed. The ancient Celts believed mistletoe possessed miraculous healing powers and held the soul of the host tree. According to Francis X. Weiser in his handbook of Christian feasts and customs, the mistletoe was a sacred plant in the pagan religion of the Druids in Britain. It was believed to have all sorts of miraculous qualities, the power of healing diseases, making poisons harmless, giving fertility to humans and animals, protecting from witchcraft, bad and evil spirits, bringing good luck and great blessings. In fact, it was considered so sacred that even enemies who happened to meet beneath a mistletoe, now listen to this, enemies who happened to meet mistletoe in the forest would lay down their arms, exchange a friendly greeting, and keep a truce until the following day. So now, kind of sounds familiar, right? It's not exactly the Christmas tradition, right, of kissing under the mistletoe, but you see where it originates from, right? You make a truce, so you walk under a doorway and you bump into someone and you kiss them, and perhaps it will bring you love, or you and that person will hook up. So you see where in the pagan tradition where that came from. It says, from this old custom grew the practice of suspending mistletoe over a doorway or in a room as a token of goodwill and peace to all comers. In ancient times, the Druids held a special ceremony 5 days after the new moon following the winter solstice. Once again, the connection with the winter solstice, in which they cut the boards of the mistletoe from the sacred oak tree with a golden sickle. It was important that branches did not touch the ground and become contaminated. Then the priest divided up the boards into sprigs and distributed them among the people who believed the mistletoe protected them from storms and evil spirits. Once again, the association with these evergreen plants as being deterrents from evil spirits and witches. Mistletoe and Viking myth. Now we're going to go back to Balder here. Viking beliefs of mistletoe's powers were rooted in myth of the resurrection of Balder, the god of summer and sun. As the story goes, Balder had a dream in which he dies. The dream alarmed his mother, Frigga, a goddess of love and beauty. Like I told you, Frigga was married with Odin. And they had Balder. That was their second born son. They said, so let me see. The dream alarmed his mother, Frigga, the goddess of love and beauty. For if Balder died, so too will all life on earth. Frigga went to all the elements here, fire, water, and earth, as well as all the animals and plants on earth, and asked them to spare her son. Satisfied that she had secured the cooperation of all, Frigga assured Balder that he would live forever. But Balder had one enemy, Loki. Right? We heard about this when we look at the Avengers. Loki is part of the characters. God of evil. And Loki found one plant that Frigga had overlooked, mistletoe. Mistletoe grows neither on the ground or under the ground. Rather, it is an aerial parasite that has no roots of its own and attaches itself to the tree it grows on. Loki made a poison arrow tip with the mistletoe and tricked Balder's blind brother, Hoder, which was Balder's twin brother, into shooting the arrow and killing Balder. For 3 days, the earth grew dark and the skies poured rain. Each of the elements in turn tried to bring Balder back to life, but none was successful save for Frigga, his loving mother. Legend says that the tears she shed during those terrible 3 days turned into the white berries of the mistletoe plant. In her joy at Balder's resurrection, she reserved mistletoe's poisonous reputation, kissed everyone who passed beneath the tree on which it grew, and issued a decree that should one ever pass beneath the mistletoe, they should have a token kiss, and no harm will befall them. So you see where kissing under the mistletoe comes from. From this story right there, from this mythology right here. So just showing you the mythic foundation of all these Christmas symbols and celebration. Santa Claus, and I believe these are my couple of last 2 slides. Santa Claus was created by merging Woden, which is Odin, one of the gods of Northland, with a Roman Catholic bishop who was canonized as saint. So let me just get to St. Nicholas. This is the saint that is combined with the whole Santa Claus mess. And who was St. Nicholas? He lived during the reigns of the Roman emperors, Diocletian, Maximilian, Constantine. Late in the 3rd century and into the 4th, when he was still a young man, Nicholas was consecrated Archbishop of Myra, a seaport town. He died on December 6th. This is his feast day. Varied and numerous legends gathered about his life on earth and his life as a saint after his death. St. Nicholas. St. Nicholas Eve is celebrated annually with the giving of gifts on the 5th of December. So this is where the tradition of giving gifts come from. Shalom, my brothers. Islam. The night before St. Nicholas Day in the northern Netherlands, and on the morning of 6th of December, St. Nicholas Day itself, in the Roman Catholic southern provinces, Belgium, Luxembourg, northern France, French Flanders, Lorraine, and Artois. He is also well known in the territories of the former Dutch Empire, including Aruba, Bonaire, Curaçao, and Suriname. He is the primary source of the popular Christmas icon of Santa Claus. And that concludes my presentation. I hope that you got something out of what I brought there. And may the Most High God bless each and every one of you. And with that, I call on my brother, Johnny Lexx.
All right, family. We're going for our brother Chief Uzziel Lewi. As you can see, the day that has shut down America is a day that has nothing to do with the text that the traditions that is supposed to upheld from it come from. The brother did a very meticulous job of going into the actual tradition to show you that it has no root or branch in the text that it comes out of. So, slowly but surely, this should impress upon our people the idea that we must dig and search deeper within ourselves to find out how we are to express that God consciousness that we embrace. Not everything that is supposed to be related to the Creator and attached to His work or His text is that which is true. There are a lot of facets of information in the world today that are attached to what they call the Bible, and people embrace it without researching it. And we have to do better than that. I put great respect on the leaders and teachers that come before me. I also put great respect on my family, my parents and my grandparents who came before me. But we must understand that as a people, we just came to the knowledge of who we are and who the Creator truly is, and we're still learning more of that. Our parents have made mistakes. Our grandparents have made mistakes. But the beautiful thing about it is that each generation is supposed to grow, become empowered, and become better. So although many of us grew up in homes like myself, where Christmas was practiced and expressed, we tend to do better with our children. We would like to see our children grow up in a home where the true consciousness of the Creator is exemplified as well as practiced. With that being said, we're going to do a very, very short 5-minute intermission. Allow people to get settled for a second online, as well as anyone in the building who would like to use the bathroom or get something to eat. When we come back, I'm going to get on with my presentation. I will wrap.
Thank you.
Email it to you?
Huh?
Can you email it to you, put it on your laptop? Because I'm using Keynote,
Using Keynote
which
too?
is better for you.
Yeah, you could email it.
I'll send to you.
Send it to my Gmail. You got my Gmail, right?
Yeah,
Uzi940@gmail.
some of y'all been here since 3 o'clock. So again, we apologize. Let me know when we're about to go live. Okay?
We live again.
Oh, we live right now? All right. Well, first and foremost, I want to say shalom to the listening audience, peace and family out there. I want to give all honor and praise to the God of our ancient forefathers, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God of Israel, the God of the world. I want to thank everyone for coming out for attending this lecture again on this day. I know it was a hard day to come out and do such a lecture. And on top of that, for you to come out in person and show your support. So I just want you to give yourself a round of applause for coming out and showing us love, because it did take a lot to do so. I also want to take the time to thank the family online that has been commenting on our YouTube channel, Uzziel Lewi. Please do not forget to like the video as well as share it. I see a lot of people are watching the video, but I don't see too many likes, so I'm not sure if you like it. Show us that you like it by actually liking the video. Show us your support by sharing the video online. Thank you very much. We're going to proceed with the very first slide of the night. Before I go into slide number 2, the first question that I'm going to ask for some of the people in the room to help me chime in on. What is psychology? Anyone? How would we define psychology? Nothing invasive, just brief base. How would you define psychology?
Study of human behavior.
Study of human behavior. Absolutely. Psychology entails getting into the very heart or mind of a thing or a person, right? Psychology, it's of the psyche, of the mind. So when we talk about psychology, we're trying to understand the heart or the mind or the root of a situation, a person, or a thing. We're entitled today's lecture, The Psychology of Revolution. We live in a culture today where the term revolution and revolutionary has become a part of what is known as pop culture. It's actually cool today to say I'm a revolutionary, because all you have to do is this. What's that? That's the infamous black fist. We've seen that at the Olympics in the 60s, correct?
That's right.
So, in the pop culture of today, if you see this online or if you see this in person, you just saw a revolutionary, right?
That's it.
No. We're here to show you today and define for you the psyche and the mind of a revolutionary. You're going to leave today if you don't really know and understand how a revolutionary should be thinking and what a revolution should look like and involve and, more importantly, entail. Contrary to popular opinion, revolution is not a pop culture. Yet we treat it like that, clearly. We put up RBG flags online, and we throw up that black fist, and we go and we march in the country. And then some of us go back and make videos and call black people savages. Or don't you didn't think I was going to let certain people escape today, did you? That's what I do. That's what we do. We speak truth to power. And whoever holding it and is not giving that truth, we're speaking to you. In order to formulate a successful revolution, you have to first understand what is a revolution. We're going to define all these things today. The psychology of revolution. There must first, before any act is performed, the very first revolution that is supposed to take place is a revolution of ideas or consciousness. If your consciousness reflects the same system you invited yourself to rebel from, your revolution will never be successful. Let me say that again if you missed it. If your thought process reflects the very same system oppressing you, you can never have a successful revolution or change or overture of power. Why? Because you are thinking as your oppressor wants you to think, which means you're thinking like a slave. And I'm going to give you some key points of what thoughts you may be embracing and adding to revolution as you see it, which is still causing you to think as a slave. For instance, if one of the very first thoughts that you have when you envisage black liberation in America is limited to your stay in America, you might possibly be still thinking from a Eurocentric lens. The ultimate goal of a liberated people is to not just liberate themselves in mind, in body, and in spirit, but we are a people with a great physical legacy as well. We are a nation of people behind enemy lines within another nation. We are a nation within a nation. But first, in order to be a nation, you must have a land. If your idea of a revolution is deeply immersed in America, that is part of the problem. Am I saying to pack up and leave? No, I'm not suggesting that at this time. Why? Because when you go to other parts of the world, you may not have the freedom to do what we're doing here right now. And that is a fact. So the first part of being a revolutionary is involving and immersing yourself in revolution of your very own consciousness, which means you must first become aware of the system that is oppressing you, which means you must be mindful of their tactics against you, which many of us are not. Because when the conversation arises in our communities as to Black Lives Matter, police shootings, the very first thing you hear some blacks say is, well, black people kill each other too.
Right.
Well, we know that, brother. But right now, we're addressing the fact that cops are shooting down people in the streets like we're animals, no regard for life. There's no need to state the obvious. We are aware that we kill one another in this country. But guess what? Statistically speaking, more white people kill white people in this country.
Yes,
so why even bring that up? You see, part of the problem of us not having a successful revolution is that within our own frame of thought is the narrative of the oppressor. It's the oppressor that is programmed your mind that whenever we speak about Black Lives Matter and the idea of police shooting, hunting, and killing us down the street, you give us the oppressive narrative where we kill each other too, brother. Yeah? Well, let me ask you a question, brother. We have police officers throughout this country that are shooting down our people as if our life has no value whatsoever. How do we approach rectifying that? Should we march? Should we shout? Should we sing? What should we do? Should we look at statistics, come back home and reevaluate? By the end of today's lecture, you're going to know what you need to do. Can we have an X out on the screen just to remove that, please? There we go. Perfect. Yes. Leave that. Thank you. So, the very first thing that we must have, apologize, is a revolution of ideas, which means we must have a revolution of consciousness. The second thing you must be able to do in order to formulate a successful revolution is you must identify who is your enemy. Because at the end of the day, if you are revolting from something or someone, you should be able to identify that which you are revolting from, correct?
Right.
Many of our people do not understand that we are still behind what's called enemy lines. What do I mean when I say that? We can go out today and we can get fancy cars. We can get beautiful jewelry and clothing. We can take trips. We can behave freely. Or so they say of you. So that gives us the impression that what? Slavery is done away with. It gives the impression that what? We're cool now. It gives you the impression that what? We're equal. You're wrong. You could never be a free man behind enemy lines. Both physically, spiritually, and conceptually, you are behind enemy lines. No, don't tell me that, brother. I might be behind enemy lines physically because I'm still in this country, but don't tell me that conceptually and spiritually I'm still behind enemy lines. Well, the very fact that you speak so abrasive when I mention that means that you probably are. Why? The fact that we live in this country and when an officer takes out one of our own, we don't see that officer going no more. Means that you are still conceptually and spiritually behind enemy lines. What am I talking? Am I talking about asking people to go out and clap a cop? Come on now. I ain't crazy to do that on TV and stuff. But I'm asking you to become passionate for the life of your people. Because if your son, daughter, niece, nephew, mother, aunt, cousin was shot down in the street as if their life has no value, you know you going outside and your feelings to find that cop. Am I right or am I wrong?
Right.
Until we treat every loss of life in our community with that same passion, you will always be conceptually and spiritually behind enemy lines. Because you're continuing to sell yourself the narrative and it's not at my doorstep. Yet. It hasn't touched my family. Yet. But guess what, family? If I get shot in that manner, it has touched your family. Or else please don't address me as brother when you see me. We have to start giving substance to the words that we speak to one another. Words are extremely powerful. Words speak things into existence. Your speech is a tool of creation. Science has caught up on that. They call it semantics. The effect that speech and sound waves has on matter. Come on. This 1800s. We're in the year 2016, almost 2017. Science is confirming the divine text that caused you to tune into this lecture today. We got to wake up, people. We have to understand that we cannot behave as pop culture does with revolutionary ideas. Revolutionary ideas must be studied and implemented. And more importantly, they must be discussed behind closed doors. Don't be a YouTube revolutionary. Get on camera and grab a gun and start telling people how you plan to react to situations. Because I'm going to tell you right now, you're a fool. Have you ever seen a successful revolution demonstrated before the media? There's a reason why Jill Scott Heron said the revolution will not be what? Televised, baby. So I believe into your leaders, your teachers, and these great supposed public speakers who you see in every march with the black fist. And we're going to shoot these cops when we see them. And then a week later, you see them behind closed doors shaking hands with these cops. And some of these dudes is taking headlocks from them. Shout out to Brother Polite. How does this work? How does this work where we don't become what we are speaking? All of us have that cliche statement. I'm real, I don't play that. Well, guess what? The realest thing you can be is what you say you are. It don't get no realer than that. We come from the era, people my age and certainly older, and I'm hoping at least a little younger, when the word is the bomb. What does that mean? That's not a light statement. Word is bomb. I'm bound by my word. At the end of the day, your speech and that which creates is going to define who you are to the world and yourself. And until you become what you are speaking, you will never be successful in life. Forget about revolution. You will never be successful in life, period, until you become what you say you are, what you show the world. This is very important. We're not playing no games. I'm not that much into sports, and I know I don't play basketball. I got a mean course to you. Tell y'all right now if y'all want to play. But I don't know about too much of the other sports, but I know this. If this was basketball, I would say people win in the fourth quarter. If this is baseball, I would say, yo, we need a ninth inning, fam. We don't got no time to play games at all. We don't have time to follow leaders and their substance-less words. You see, your words have no substance when you don't become it before yourself first. Because you gotta look yourself in the mirror and say, I know I'm bullshit. I know I'm telling them to keep it real, but I know I ain't gonna do shit. So we had a famous singer who I have some respect for, who there's one element about his song that I never could get until I got older and I studied his history, his lifestyle, and I said, oh, no wonder he couldn't say it, he just made y'all say it. Y'all know the song. Say it loud!
I'm black and I'm proud.
I ain't never heard him say it yet in the song. But he kept inciting you to say it. And these are your leaders. Your leaders go around asking you to put in the work. The elders who paved the way for them to have a voice, put that work in first and did you to step around. That's a leader. A leader puts in the work first and then challenges you to be a man and follow suit. Take up arms with your brother. Become a woman. Follow suit. This gets real deep, people. The last element invoked in the very psyche of becoming a revolutionary, or the very psyche of revolution, is this idea. There can be no revolution without divine insight. What do I mean by that? That sounds real spooky, don't it? Because it almost sounds like we talking about God again, right? Y'all crazy as hell. Anybody in their natural state of mind that thinks to themselves for a single second that they can be successful in anything that they do outside of the one who gave you the life and the air that you're breathing right now, you have lost your goddamn mind. You don't have nothing without the Creator, period. I put an exclamation on that too. Nothing. You couldn't leave your home this morning without Him. Stop listening to the real spooky people. You know what spooky people are? The ones that tell you there's no God, and let them get them on that plane and feel some of that turbulence. What's going to happen? Come on, you been on a plane with some of that. You know what I'm talking about. There can be no revolution without divine insight. But you know, that's spooky to say in 2017 to a room full of million people. Because as the Torah relates, thy leaders cause thee to err. There's an agenda right now in our community led by the powers that be to usher in confusion among us. A divided people can't see straight. How you gonna be successful in walking on a path when you can't see straight? Well, what you mean, Brother Zion? Well, I'm about to tell you what I mean real quick. I'm gonna fast forward really quick to show you exactly what I mean. What am I talking about? What are we looking at here? We're looking at circa 1960s with the introduction of what was termed COINTELPRO. We're looking at what looks and appears to be two what? Black Panthers. How ironic, right? Images are powerful. They say they tell what? How many words? How many thoughts? An image is worth what? A picture's worth what? 1,000 words. Each word evokes its own thought, so go figure. We're looking at the idea that the government has inspired a new type of revolution among black revolutionaries in this country. What is this new type of revolution? Well, here's what they do. They take some of their very famous leaders and they begin to whisper to them some things that they have on them. For instance, how many of you have ever heard the audio of the FBI trying to get Malcolm X to join them? You heard that, right?
Yeah.
What did Malcolm X do?
He said, nah, y'all already know who.
He said what?
Y'all already know who everybody is.
He said, why do they know who everybody is? What do you need me for? What they need you for? You see, you are the starring character in this here play. Because if we, the powers that be, can control your leaders, we are going to cause you to never be successful in anything that you do in terms of revelation. So what did you see in the 1960s with the emergence of what we call black consciousness? You saw black organizations stand up to fight the system, and then you saw and witnessed those same organizations fighting each other. Mm-hmm. Do you think that that was not by design?
Of course.
Do you think that these brothers woke up one day and say, you know what, I don't really like the fact that this brother is now Malik El-Hashabaz. You Malcolm X, nigga.
Yeah. Malcolm Lewis.
You Malcolm Lewis, matter of fact. Matter of fact, your ass is Lil Wayne.
Yeah, New York, right?
New York, Detroit, right?
Detroit, yeah.
Do you think that somebody woke up one morning and said that? Put more respect on your ancestors' name. You see, the government is very savvy with what they do. You see, the government is able to do what? To get into your history. So we're going to talk about another person that they wanted to do some things with. And they said to this person, well, check this out. The people love you. They love you, and you got a lot of success. But we can end that right now by sending your wife this VHS cassette. What I'm talking about? Dr. Martin Luther King had what? A mistress. They call that today what? A side piece. You mean the Dr. Martin Luther King? That's the one I mean. Had a side piece. But let me ask you a question now, because this is going to get deep for a second. If a man is doing great work in the community and has a side piece, let me ask you a very, very blunt question that I need you to answer without respect for what you think my answer would be. Does that negate the work of that man? No. Answer. No. Let me hear that louder. No. Let me ask the online family. If a man is doing great work in the community and he rises to a level of great stature, and you say, but, first, before I even tell you what the part is, I don't want to say this. Whenever you see black people rise, you see other black people that look for the, but, why is it that when you have white leadership and white men in power, you don't see other white men saying, but, there's a sickness among us that has been prevalent for some time now. This is what that sickness is called. crab in the goddamn barrel syndrome. Who that nigga think he is? Who made you Martin Luther King? Malcolm Miller? We're gonna get agreed because we're gonna become transparent and honest. Now, let's touch on the other side of that summation. Does that also clearly mean that this leader is not perfect the way you see him? Loud and clear.
It's not perfect.
He's not. That was your problem to begin with. Your problem to begin with is that, A, you thought the man that you believe was inspired by God could have no flaws. Well, guess what? Open up the book of God. Read it, and then come back and formulate some of the thought. Every man of God, save a couple, had flaws. Some of them had very great flaws. I'll bring up some real quick. We have King David, who the scriptures speak highly about him. But we're in 2017, and I know that we have younger people listening. The scriptures put some respect, Birdman name, on his voice. Right or wrong?
That's right, that's right. On his lead, that's right.
With Birdman's voice, the scripture puts respect, R-E-S-P-E-K, on King David's name. Right or wrong?
Right?
But King David was what?
It's a warrior.
A murderer and an adulterer. But God said that he was what? The apple of my eye. Woo! And that statement was made after it was already known that King David was a murderer and an adulteress. So I have a question. Does the flaw of man negate his work before the eyes of God? Because I know as men, we're going to be hella petty. We're going to say, no, we be king, hella mistress, while we in the house with a mistress. We're going to say, I can't believe he did that. He shot that woman.
Yeah.
While we hold a smoking gun, because we just came in from shooting a brother. I want to drive this point home very quick, because it's a very, very deep point. You have to become a revolutionary thinker if you are to become liberated first in mind and spirit. But as a revolutionary thinker, you must first become transparent with yourself and with the people second. Notice I didn't say God, because God see what you're doing when it comes. So you got to be transparent to yourself first. Meaning what? You got to be able to come home and look yourself in the mirror and say, that lecture I gave was so bogus because I didn't believe shit I said. And guess what? In being that transparent, what's going to happen? You're going to become greater with each lecture. You're going to become greater with each work ethic that you perform daily if you put that into practice daily. You should have mirrors in your home as a conscious man and woman, because that will begin to cause you to look in that sucker and see yourself as you truly are. We've all been there. We've all been at stages in our lives where we've been sitting so low that we got in front of the mirror and just looked. And the image that stayed us back brought a deep sense of shame. But I want to tell you something. If you felt shame, there's hope for you. It's when you don't feel shame that you pretty much hopeless. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
When you reach a level in sin, when you have no shame, what do you call that in the street? I think they say pop. I know I'm getting older, I'm 37, I get a little older, but they say that shit pop, right?
Yeah. Right.
We got many thoughts too now. Let me tell you that straight up. And for our brothers using the scriptures to repent, the Torah is against having many thoughts. So just want to let you know that too. To keep it real, because we're family. To capitalize on my point about this country is a well thought out designed machine. Created and designed to oppress you. Our scripture gives us deep insight about this country because it compares it to a previous captivity we were immersed in Egypt. Oh, we're going to talk that again. Where's your evidence? Shout out to Brother Reggie. You talking about Egypt and you ain't got no evidence? Where's the bodies of Abraham? As soon as you show me the body of Esau, I got the body of Abraham for you. Where's the body of Jacob and Israel? As soon as you come with the body of the top, I got that body for you.
No, you don't. No,
You see, you got to get to a level in dealing with these people that the pressure that they're trying to apply to you, you apply to them and some. And some of us in the community going to show you how you do that. Shout out to Sally. I could only be me.
How do you make the screen big on that computer?
Huh?
How do you make the screen full?
I was trying to figure it out. It wouldn't do that for me.
All right.
I want to make this clear while we're on this point about the current state of the conscious community. Here is something that we see currently as the face of the conscious community. Turn on the latest conscious TV YouTube channel, and what do you see? The Morals verse, Kemet. The Hebrew verse, the Morals. Kemet verse, everybody. That kind of dialogue can only be controlled by this mechanism shown right here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because a real father, a real conscious father, will not see his children doing this, especially knowing that there's somebody else pulling the damn strings. You see, whenever you pit consciousness versus consciousness, let me say that again. Whenever you pit consciousness versus consciousness, you are now unconscious. You are not supposed to oppose or become standoff with a dialogue concerning consciousness. Does that make sense? I'm arguing my version of truth with another brother who's arguing his version of truth. So now we're at a point in our argument where, nigga, I know I got the truth and you don't. Damn, I just called you a nigga? Sound like I got no truth. Because I'm using a word designed to destroy my people, to build myself up. Does that make sense? Let me say it again. I'm using a word designed to destroy my people that I'm now using to build myself up. We are insane. Don't allow nobody to call you a nigga. And I'm going to give you an example of why, and it's going to make a lot of sense. Two brothers arguing and fighting in the street, and one got their hammer. There's some old timers in the room. One got a gun. Right? I'm pointing at the old timer here, he's a little tease to the truth. One got a gun, right? If my dialogue with my brother, I always acknowledge that he's my brother, it's going to be a little hard to do certain things. Let me make the analogy clear. If I constantly refer to my brother as a nigga, think about all of the synonyms conceptually with that term. We talk about the thought behind the thought right now. Remember, thought becomes something. Thought is something. Whenever you speak a thought in the ether, you are speaking it into existence. Every time you refer to your brother as a nigger, it becomes easier for you to treat him as such. And I'm going to give you a very, very transparent and logical explanation of why. Imagine for a second, I'm arguing with my brother, who I always refer to as my nigger. And then I go back home to go get my gun because I'm coming back to shoot this nigger. But if I always refer to him as my brother, and I go in the room and I get my gun, and I say to myself, yo, I'm about to kill this brother. That shit don't even make sense. I'm about to kill this brother, my brother. You see how language is effective? You see how the proper use of the language becomes effective in how you treat and deal with one another? Don't you know, understand, and internalize that it's almost impossible to pull out a gun and shoot my brother? Do you understand how much easier it is to pull out a gun and shoot this nigga? It's a much lower frequency. You can't even almost say maybe you're feeling like high and happy because you put so much disrespect on the term. If you got a father that's in your life and you love him, you don't never catch yourself referring to him as this nigga. Some of us who wasn't raised with fathers and are upset about that, and he come around 20 years later because I got a sports contract, I'm like, man, what this nigga want? You almost can't even put respect on the term nigga, never. It's a term of misendearment. Yeah, I just made that word up. It's not a term of endearment. And this system is designed to foster that. Because now they got real tricky with it. They say, guess what, Johnny? When you talking with Ricky and Tom and Richard, we ain't gonna say what the other word for Richard is right now. But when you talking with them guys, you can also call yourselves niggas. So now black people think it's super cool, because even when the white boys say nigga. What's the white boy with the shiny ass on? What's his name? Of all names, he got Slim Jesus?
Yeah, so,
God damn.
yeah.
How many times did he say nigga in his song? And that song sold a lot on iTunes. And guess what? White people wasn't the only one that bought it. I skipped a lot of slides. I need to go back to the original slides. So we talked about this, I'm going to touch on it for less than 60 seconds. When we mention the term revolution, this is the image that we envisage. So all a person has to do on Facebook, you got it. No matter if you got Android, no matter if you got Apple phone, everybody got this emoji, right? Yeah. And Apple got so cool that you can change the hand and make them black, right? Yeah. You can really be black and proud, right? This is the image that you envisage. This is the current conception of black liberation. And guess what? This thinking has to be stopped. It must be killed. Because this becomes an excuse for not putting in work. I support my people. You saw the Facebook picture I took with Brother Polite at the last lecture? I support my people. I was with Seti in Cincinnati, and I was like this. But when the police demonstrated in front of the courtroom to protest against the other police officer who was convicted of slaying our own, you was at home also, like this. When this becomes the image for black liberation, you don't deserve to be here. Black liberation is an action and a lifestyle. You must live it. It is more than something that you take a picture up with. If you make peaceful revolution impossible, you now have made violent revolution inevitable. Does everybody understand that? So we're living right now in a time in our country where peaceful revolution is impossible. Because even when I gather and assemble according to the Constitution peacefully to protest for right against the wrongs, you have made it impossible because you've let loose the dogs on me. You have incarcerated me for exercising what you have told us is our rights. But the problem with that for black people who live in this country is this. You were never included in that narrative. They took away my rights. When that was written, you were not in mine. That's part of your problem. You're protesting for the rights you believe the country included you in. Don't you know that the very same rights that you go into the courtroom in America and tell them that they are abusing was written while their parents were still slaves, guess what that meant? You're not included. You ever heard of the 3/5 clause? Where he decided to consider black men and women as 3/5 of a man because their voting power would affect us, but the thought still remains the same. There's a point in our history when the world record considering each of you as 3/5 of a man. You're not even a goddamn man in their eyes. Does that make sense? So when you go to court and they hand you a court-appointed attorney, my lawyer will love this, don't you know that that's telling you that you're not even a human being?
Right.
I wish this was the old me because I'm the same thing I really want to say. Do you know that any time a court-appointed attorney speaks for you, you are telling that courtroom that you are not even a human being? And you know what this means. I want to say more. You're telling the court that you're not even a human being. You're telling the court that I am not competent to speak for myself. Get you a Black's Law Dictionary and find out if you think I'm playing. Our Moors will tell you what addition to get. Shout out to the Moors. The revolution has always been in the hand of the young. The young always inherit the revolution. As per Huey Newton, I put great respect on his name. Let me read that again. The revolution has always been in the hands of the young. So while us coming into older age, and certainly our parents, look at the young brothers and sisters in the street who tear shit up during the riots. Oh, look what they doing. They believe in no better than the police. We trying to fight. But guess what, sister? I don't see no older black men out there. And I damn sure didn't see too many older black women out there. You know who are the people going to be that's actually going to fight when shit hit the fan? It's going to be those same kids you laughing at that got their pants down past the legs. Who don't know enough to not express themselves in public better, because many of them are victims to their family, their environment in this country. But don't forget, those are going to be the vanguards of the revolution. Understand that. When it hit the fan, or you don't want to be next to Janelle with your long pants. When it hit the fan, you don't want to be next to the brother that got the baggiest pants in the room. Because more than likely, that's going to be the brother that's not going to allow a police officer to whip you upside your goddamn head when your man is at home watching from TV like this. Look at this picture and admire it. Am I a Black Panther? No. Was I ever a Black Panther? No. How much respect do we collectively put on the Black Panther movement? I'm hoping that's an emphatic yes. Got to be. Because if it wasn't for demonstrations of discipline and power, and we ain't taking it and having it no more, I couldn't be able to be this bold on the stage right now. We gotta put respect on people that put in work before us, which means it entails that you must study about people that lived before you, because you and me are certainly not the beginning and end of revolution. Go back and watch those that paved the way for you. Look at this lion. This kid look like he could be my son. I wouldn't give him more than 14. Maybe. This kid right here look like 17. And guess what? I know y'all can see. They on the front line. With respect on it. The point of this image and this picture is to show them that they may have different ideologies in the community, but every community has a facet of truth that will benefit the collective family. And we can certainly look at a group like this and see how we can become military if need be. Right or wrong? I have a question. Is change something that you ask for?
No.
I want to hear that loud, huh?
No.
I don't know. I hear that. We was raised different in New York City. Shout out to everybody in New York City too, man. When you hear, when I live in the world, everybody's face look like, I know. You got to be kidding. I'm asking for change. Can you picture somebody getting on the 4 train saying, in the heat of rush hour, you're in my room trying to get on the train. You know how that guy take on work.
Push you right along.
Push you right out the way. You might, I don't want to say too much. You're going to find out just how good it can get. Or is it something that you must demand? Do you ask for respect? I'm going to command respect. Because guess what I also know, speaking from humility, I'm going to grant you the same level of respect and the demand that you give me. I hope that makes sense. What's beauty about strength is not the exertion or expression thereof, but the restraint thereof, which is called humility. Malcolm X said, nobody can give you freedom. Nobody can give you equality or justice or anything. If you are a goddamn man, that. You take it. You take it. You take it. When you enter a forum of black intellectuals, void of God consciousness, they tell you the key to black liberation is economics. We must assemble. We must build businesses. We must pool our assets. We must build hedge funds. Brother, you need a status correction. But guess what? We have a template in our history for looking into the idea of whether or not economics will bring us liberation. Who's familiar with the term or the history, better yet, of Black Wall Street? By a show of hands. In Tuska, Oklahoma, starting May 30th, 1921, throughout the summer of June that year, something very devastating took place in this country called America. For the very first time, you've seen a riot in wide scale on a level that you did not see any time in the country ever before. And it happened to a place, a city in a region that was completely in all black. Tuska, Oklahoma, in a park known as Greenwood, upon his visit, Booker T. Washington coined the term, look at all the success. I mean, they have their own hospitals. Let's go through it. 600 businesses, 21 churches, 21 restaurants. It's probably owned by the churches. You see how they're the same thing? 30 grocery stores. They had 2 movie theaters. We're talking about a city, small city. It wasn't that big. And they had 2. 6 private airplanes. Time out. There got to be a typo. 1921. In a time when the term legendary was still pop culture. These black people had 6 private airplanes? I think that they really had a high level of economic success, would you say? Keeping in mind the frame of thought, when you enter forums with people who take God out the equation, our liberation need not God. We just pool our assets and become economically great. But we're going to look at that. They had 1 hospital, 1 bank. They had their own goddamn school system. That means the principal was black. That means the superintendent was black. That means that when they pledged allegiance, it was to the consciousness conveyed from black people. You understand that? When you control your own school, you control your conscious flow into your children. And they had that. And then the white Americans are saying, well, guess what? I saw Johnny the other day He brought a grand piano, and this is a true story, by the way. He brought a grand piano to one of these niggas' houses in England. I ain't got no goddamn grand piano. What the dude said in that movie that was eating the banana and he was hating? Every white person in Tucson, Oklahoma felt like that when they looked at Black Wall Street. They felt like the brother from, come on, that movie. He was eating the banana. He said, I don't like that.
I like that too.
I don't like that shit.
Drop it down.
I'm gonna drop it down.
Oh yeah.
Every single white person that lived anywhere there, Tucson, Oklahoma, was sitting there home eating they didn't have bananas probably. They eating their peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You know how they do that. They do the peanut butter. I'm being weird. And they felt like that. So guess what they decided to do? This right here is a picture of that all-black school, by the way. It don't look like some of the black schools where y'all got young kids signing up for some of these conscious lectures. This look like it was a real school, not somebody home. And I'm not dissing the home. For those that got it and doing it, you got to start somewhere. But I'm showing you certainly the level that they expressed with that idea of homeschooling or of schooling their own. This looks like every other classroom in America in that era. They achieved it in 1921 until this happened. There was a day, May 31st, 1921, there was a black boy who every day after and or during while he's shoe shining, he would go to a building across the street to go use the bathroom. This building required him to take an elevator to the second floor because there was a restaurant there. So he gets on the elevator, which at that time wasn't manned, but woman-manned. A young girl controlled the elevator. Every day he got in the elevator, didn't say nothing to her. On this day, that young girl gets on the elevator, and the lights cut off and the elevator stops. Now, those of you who may have lived in a building a little more now, you know that elevators have a mechanism where it can be controlled not just from the inside, but the outside. You can actually force stop an elevator, not just inside with your little button, but you can do it on the outside too. Keeping in mind that black boy came from Greenwood, a very successful city of blacks. Somebody had to have an idea. Oh, I'm gonna get this little nigga today. You see, this elevator gonna stop. And you see when it stopped? This white girl is gonna do something different today. She gonna yell. And that's what happened on that day. She yelled and she screamed. And he ran out. Because he already know the narrative and how it goes. When a white man, when a black man causes a white woman to yell in 1921 America, he rolled behind out of that elevator because he know what's about to happen. He know that his word didn't even matter. At that point, he caused a young white girl to scream. As far as the narrative is going to tell you. So what did he do? He ran home. They sent the militia after him. He never touched the girl. The girl screamed because that's what people do when the elevator stops between the floors. Some people. By the time the militia arrived, he had already been dragged and arrested to the courthouse. By that time, the narrative briefly changed. From the white girl screaming to her being assaulted to her finally being raped. No, he never touched her. She admitted this and never even brought him to prosecution, by the way. Never touched him. The narrative went from she screamed, he assaulted her, and he raped her. He never touched her. So this militia of all white men came to the courthouse, and guess what? We're dealing with post-World War I black soldiers in Greenwood that also came to the station and said, guess what? We know how this narrative works, and I know how to shoot. I just came from World War I. So they walked to that courthouse like black people walk. They go on their side and said, guess what? Not today. And the sheriffs came out and said, guess what? He's okay. Go back home. And they went back home. And when they came back, they had read at home that a group of white men saw that they had came to the station with guns, and they went back home and got some more guns and some other militias. Ku Klux Klan. So guess what happens at that point? Now these post-World War I black soldiers know it's going to be a fight. They're going to try to lynch and kill this young black man who we know is innocent. It's one of those places where, what they say in chairs, everybody knows their name, they're home. They knew he was innocent. So they came back now. And this time, an unarmed white Klansman walked straight up to a black man holding a gun and says, nigga, what are you going to do with that gun? And the post-World War I black soldier took a step back like he had visited Jamaica. And he said, I'm going to use it if I have to. And a struggle ensued, and the white man got shot, point blank. And what do you think happened thereafter?
All hell broke loose.
The worst race riot in the history of America took place in Tulsa in 1921, when an angry white mob destroyed America's wealthiest black community and killed, whom they are willing to say on paper, 300. Here's the problem with that part of the narration. It is a known fact and attested to today that many of the blacks who lost their lives during the worst riot in American history, many of them were buried in graves and not even named or listed, because the state of Oklahoma was embarrassed by the atrocities committed against these people and was not willing to go on record. There are over 3,000 bodies unaccounted for. They said they buried more than 20 to 30 times more than they went on paper saying they did. That's deep, people. That's deep. They dropped aerially from air. You want to talk about the first act of terror? This is the first act of terror in the country, by none. You want to talk about the first act of terror with chemical weapons being introduced? Here. Because people reported white and black inmates were dropping bombs and wasn't even realized who was hitting. It was hitting some of the same white people that was doing the rioting and the living and the killing. White and black people reported that there were helicopters from the National Guard that were dropping bombs. To be specific, nitroglycerin bombs. They were already trying to fight fires. Just so you know, I hope this all makes sense to you. When a building is on fire, 9 or 10 times that building can be recovered. We saw that when we looked at what happened in 9/11. We said, wait. That jet fuel didn't bring down that building like that. Y'all had to have some bombs. Because if you look at this building and how it was burned before, I forget the name of it, in the city, it was burning for like 2-3 days straight. And the structure was way more inferior. And it still stood. But guess what? When a building is burning and on fire, if you drop nitroglycerin on it, it make that building material like liquid. Guess what they were trying to do? Y'all ain't gonna rebuild this city and die ourselves 2 times over. Because we know black people got a resilient spirit. We know that black people say, if you kill me once and I don't die, I'm coming back twice better. So y'all ain't coming back. They drop nitroglycerin bombs on burning buildings. And this is what the city looked like when it was done. Go online and Google Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street. so you can see images of how the city looked before. It was beautiful, even by today's standards. When injustice becomes a norm, rebellion is a must. Agreed?
Agree.
When injustice becomes a norm, rebellion is a what?
Must.
Well, these two images reflect the America that they wish to make great again. Because this is how you arrest a white man who shot 9 people. And this is how you arrest a black man for selling cigarettes. Does this make sense?
No.
When injustice becomes a norm, rebellion becomes a what?
Must.
Take them to McDonald's.
This is how white media meticulously uses deceptive narration to build or tear down truth.
Break it down, bro.
Yet no matter how grossly they pervert truth, your ignorance is needed to co-sign their narrative. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
No matter how grossly they pervert the truth, you still gotta be deaf, dumb, and blind to accept that ish, right or wrong.
Right.
Because they don't look at the image on the left and tell you these are thugs who are peacefully demonstrating with some passion. There's some white boys tearing the city up because of some goddamn Super Bowl and they ain't like who won. And they describe them in the news as being rowdy.
Rowdy.
The group of black people on your left, with their hands raised as such, are described in the paper as being animals. The group of whites on the left, on the right, who literally turned upside down the car that they standing on. Oh, they're behaving mischievously. Oh, look at this mischief. Bunch of mischief people.
Yeah. This people.
While the dogs are the real animals. Look at black people destroying their own community. Y'all forgot to mention that we wasn't owning black businesses that day. Y'all owned the businesses. There were a couple of black businesses that took the hit casualties of war, but the majority of businesses that were destroyed in recent riots you see in the 2-3 years in this country was white businesses. They're destroying their own community. No, we don't own nothing. Just want to remind you of that. But white people tearing up the city they own are described as booze-filled revelers. Oh, you gotta stop drinking, Tommy. You see what you can do when you drink, right?
The insurance won't pay for it, don't worry.
I'm glad you said that. He said with insurance, go pay for it, don't worry. Do you know that in Tulsa, Oklahoma, every single insurance claim made was turned down?
Design plan.
Every single insurance claim made was turned down. This is where I want to get at. Robert F. Williams, in a book entitled Negroes with Guns. Don't feel no way about the term Negro, by the way. Because some of us, we're so used to this current term African American that we forget that it's just as dumb as calling yourself a Negro. Remember, Jesse Jackson was the one that came out and said, we Afro-Americans. I didn't read nowhere where a group of black people agreed to put him up to say how we're going to be represented. The Afro-American militant is a militant because he defends himself first. You can't do a goddamn thing for nobody if you don't stand up for yourself first. Then his family, his home, and his dignity. Don't forget that part. It's cool to defend yourself and your family and your home, but where's your respect for your own dignity? He does not introduce violence into racial, social systems. The violence is already there and has always been there. It is precisely this unchallenged violence that allows a racial social system to perpetuate itself. When people say that they are opposed to blacks resorting to violence, what they really mean is they're opposed to blacks defending themselves. Let me read that part again. When white America gives you the narrative that they are opposed to blacks resorting to violence, what they really mean is they are opposed to black people defending themselves and challenging the exclusive monopoly of violence practiced by white racists and racist America. So we're talking about the template for revolutions and the revolutionary. So we know we can look that no further, right?
Right.
The Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey did what? He united 6 million black people between 1916 and 1926, but maybe you do not hear me. He united 6 million black people between 1916 and 1926. So let me ask you a question. Were there Moors between 1916 and 1926? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Yes. Were there Hebrews between 1916 and 1926?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. There were some people that was undecided and right on the fence between 1916 and 1926.
Hey,
But he did what? He united them.
galvanized.
What part of his plan worked that we don't get? Because the division that existed then exists now, yet he was still successful in uniting them. You know what had to have happened? Each different group and organization had to realize that regardless of the nuances and differences, you are my brother and I am yours. You are my sister and I am yours. And as your brother, I am my brother's keeper. So God said to Cain, where is your brother? And Cain said, am I my brother's keeper?
Yes, you are.
I see the spirit of Cain alive today. He built huge black businesses and had a fleet of ships in 1920. He employed over 1,000 black people in New York City alone. And he created the red, black, and green flag that we use today, RBG, right? And much, much more. But what caused him to be so successful is the question I previously asked. Let's get into his thought. Can liberation exist without God?
Oh,
Let's look at what Marcus Messiah Garvey said. The man who united 6 million black people who, for the greater part, all existed in their different organizations. What was the chief cornerstone that united them all? What was these major groups that existed at that time? What was their common denominator?
spiritual foundation.
Marcus Garvey said, God and nature first made us what we are, and then out of our own creative genius we make ourselves what we want to be. Follow always that great law. Woo! Y'all Hebrews is bugging, keep talking about the Torah that liberate us. Marcus Garvey said, follow always what? That great law. Was he talking about that constitution that wasn't written with you and I in mind?
No.
Was he talking about these Bill of Rights?
No.
Let the sky and God be our eternity and our measurement. Did he just say sky daddy? Did Marcus Garvey just measure your liberation and equate it with your allegiance to a sky daddy? He sure did. Who you call a sky daddy with your disrespectful mouth that some of us bet my head you keep continuing saying. Put some respect on God. Some of us gonna make you do that. Shout out to you, sir. Garvey saw liberation through God consciousness. The Negro Revolution, according to Malcolm X, is controlled by foxy white liberals, but the government, by the government itself. But the Black Revolution is controlled only by who? What's time out now? Y'all keep telling me that y'all also students of Malcolm X. Y'all keep telling me Malcolm X wasn't all religious. In one of his interviews, he said that we got to value history above everything else. Let me read what Malcolm X is saying. Let me castigate some of the foolishness and reintroduce myself to what Malcolm X said. But the black revolution is controlled only by who? God. You got to become so free in expressing your freeness. I'm a free man, I'm a free woman. That your very existence is an act of rebellion. You have to become so free in spirit to say what you think and feel. When your very what? Existence becomes an act of rebellion. People got to see you and say, you better watch out. That's the rebellion. That's the rebellious one in terms of being rebellious against and towards this unjust system. And you can only do that by becoming so what? Free. Which also means and entails what? You have the power. Because if we look at times past and how freedom was achieved, there may have been some peaceful protests. There may have been some peaceful assembly, but we know through history how successful revolutions are achieved. There must be a sense of rededication, which brings us to the crown jewel of the night. We as Hebrews began a season last night called Hanukkah, which literally means to dedicate. You had a family of Levites, headed by a father by the name of, I know y'all call him Mattathias, but I want you to learn your language. The father's name was Matit Yahu. Matit means a gift. That's one of the gifts that were brought up to the Jerusalem temple. Matit Yahu, gift of Yah. He had to be. He was one of the men that could literally say, I'm God's gift. The black man in his right state of mind is God's gift to the world. Headed by Mattathias, Matit Yahu, there was a very successful revolution. What they first had to do and become liberated in spirit in order to rededicate themselves to their God. Because a revolution cannot be successful if you have not identified what it is you're fighting for. What am I talking about? Crack open the book of 1 Maccabees and look at the words of Judah Maccabee and look at how he approached rebellion in spirit and in act. He said, we are fighting to preserve our culture, our land, our heritage. But if you don't know what your culture is, if you don't know where your land is, if you cannot identify your heritage, you will never have a successful revolution. This is why it's imperative to have dialogues about our consciousness. Because regardless of whether or not Marcus Garvey was successful in uniting 6 million blacks, at the end of the day, it was some of them blacks that brought him down. So guess what happens when you put 6 million black people in a room and tell them go on and you don't need God consciousness? Then you're going to have immorality.
Right.
Yeah, it's not impossible to unite us, but under which banner?
That's right.
Because if you get 6 million black people in the room, you got a whole lot of 5%ers in this side. You got a whole lot of Mormons on the other. You got a whole lot of Hebrews on the other. And guess what the talk of the night gonna be when we finally in the room? What's your nationality, brother? What tribe you from? You look like Ephraim. What's your status? Matter of fact, you need a status correction. You see, when you unite 6 million people in a room, void of God consciousness, what you have succeeded in doing is organizing confusion. And with that being said, I hope that everyone enjoyed tonight's demonstration and lecture. I want to thank everyone in the room today for coming and being with us. Thank you dearly, very, very much. I want to thank our family online tuning in. I want to say thanks to Chief and Rabbi Ben for opening up Toga Lounge, 4404 Avenue H. Many more events to come from here. Keep a lookout if you're in the area. I want to thank our sister in the back who was able to provide some of the food and drinks for the night. Now, thank you very much. I want to thank our brother Chief Uzziel for being the event host as well as speaker. It takes a lot to put on them many hats. I want you to keep in mind that we have some more upcoming things. Myself and Chief Uzziel will go to Temple University next month. We're going to be speaking at the African Studies Department. Look out for that. We're also going next month, the end of the month, January 29th, to the Schaumburg Museum for a Schaumburg Museum tour. We want to take our people through a tour of Black history, which will culminate, of course, with our history as Hebrews. We want to show you the letters that the Emperor Haile Selassie of Ethiopia sent to Roman Matthews. What you mean? I thought John Hebrews is anti-African. Keep believing that narrative that they wish to sell you because they've run out of an intelligent conversation. Whenever a person runs out of an intelligent conversation, they build a narrative that will tear you down. Hebrews were never anti-African because real Hebrews acknowledge ourselves as being African. Yes, if we're going to go by the term of designating that portion of the world as Africa, then we have to also acknowledge that Israel is Northeast Africa. So you are Hebrew, but you're African by geographical location, baby. And in February 12th, we're having an Origins of Civilization tour at the, what's the name of this museum, man? The Met Museum, the Metropolitan Museums of Art. And Brother Reggie, you are welcome to attend. Bring the metal and bring all the metal translators so we can go archive for archive. And again, I thank you all very deeply, and I give all glory and praise to our God and King when I say hallelujah. 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 Thank you, family. Thank you.
I'd like to thank everyone that came out today, to the people on Facebook Live and to the people on the Uzziel Lewi channel on YouTube. I'd like to thank you all for tuning in. And we like to put up free lectures. Sometimes you see these brothers, they kind of tax the people, with these lectures. But if you do, we understand we made it a $12 price, but if you wish it in your heart, you can leave a donation with our brother Benjamin. If you want to leave something for us doing what we did, and we basically always out to do something for the people. So we're going to do some more of these lectures. We're going to do lectures on Torah. Hopefully me and Brother Zion, on the new year, when the Gregorian calendar comes up, and link up with our brother Chief Benjamin. And those of you that are interested in Torah, we could also do something with that. Maybe a weekly thing, or we'll stream it, so we can have a fluid type of thing going on with that.
People have been asking about Torah classes. Make sure you plug in DCB.
Oh, absolutely. DCB, every Saturday morning, DCB.C.B channel on YouTube. We always have, every Sabbath, we have a Torah class from 10:30 to 2, and then in the afternoon is usually announced. So you will thoroughly learn the Torah from different teachers on that avenue. So everyone is welcome to come out. The address is 382 Hamilton Avenue, Brooklyn, New York. So you're always welcome to come out on the second floor and join us. So once again, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out. Thank you for your patience, and thank you for taking time out of your busy lives to be here with us. Hallelujah. And I'd like to say shalom to each one of y'all. Shalom, peace, and Islam. Hallelujah. Oh, and don't forget Brother Zion Lexx's books. What's the name of the books again, brother?
It was written and engraved.
It was written and engraved,
Matriarchs of the Covenant.
Matriarchs of the Covenant,
Ancient Kemet on Trial.
Ancient Covenant Trial,
Available on BarnesandNobles.online.com.
available at BarnesandNobles.com.
If you go to Barnes and Nobles and you don't see the book on the shelf, you can go to the kiosk and type in Zion Lexx or Uzziel Lewi.
You can go to the kiosk, type in Zion Lexx or Uzziel Lewi at Barnes and Nobles.
Or you can go directly to someone at the information booth and they'll pull it up and order it and bring it to the store or your house.
Go to someone, the booth, and they'll order it for you, and they'll send it to your house, or order it for you, either way they'll order it for you. So, thank you once again. And the stream is free on Facebook Live on YouTube.
Good to meet you, man. Likewise, man. Thank you, man.
Yeah, I'm glad I came.